Service-based franchises can really generate significant income, often rivaling the restaurants. Much lower overhead. You're operating out of a small office, and again, anywhere between the $70,000 to $120,000, $130,000 range.
Recently, I came across a fascinating article on Forbes.com that said franchising at 50, while the over 50s are the new generation of franchisees. The article referred to a BFA NatWest report on the UK franchising landscape in 2018, and it says that the average age of new franchisees in the UK continues to hover around the age of 40, but the number of new franchisees age 50 rose from 14% in 2015 to 19% in 2018. 35% of all franchisees were over 50. Now, in the U.S., we know that 25% of all new businesses they're started by people between the age of 55 and 64 years old. Now, to understand why some folks are going the franchise route, I turned to Bob Edwards. He's an expert on franchising. He's also the founder of Franchise City. It's a popular website, blog, and YouTube channel that helps franchise buyers avoid mistakes and make educated decisions. Today, I'm going to introduce you to Bob Edwards, and I'm going to ask Bob to tell you, and to tell me why franchising is such a popular option when it comes to starting a new business. Bob, we're so glad to have you today here on Over 50 TV, and we're going to talk about franchising, and welcome to our show.
Great. Thanks for having me on.
Good to have you, Bob. Bob, one of the things that I think that we kind of had talked off camera about is some of the reasons, and you had like top 5 reasons to own a franchise when you're over 50. Can you talk about some of those?
Yeah, you bet. And, not just over 50, the benefits for franchising can be applicable at any age. And there are some benefits, we can get into specific to over 50. But the first and foremost benefit to owning a franchise are the systems and processes. And you being an entrepreneur, you know what it's like when you start a business. You've got to get the client acquisition down. You've got to get the marketing down. You've got to do the branding. You've got to figure out all these things. Who am I hiring? What type of person do I need to hire? How do I keep these people on? So franchising, it's a proven business model. You can step into it, add your, special sauce, if you will, and just run away with it. So systems and processes in a proven business model, generally that's the number one that people can look at. The one that most people I think are familiar with is the branding and recognition, right? McDonald's, Taco Bell, KFC, these are the ones that most people are familiar with. And there's certain advantages to having this brand recognition and systematized processes. So, branding and recognition, although not that applicable in all type of franchises, mostly in the food industry. Ongoing training and support is huge. You go into a system and you're not only getting that from the franchise, but you have a peer group. And a lot of the franchises now with social media will have peer groups on Facebook. You've got a question, chances are you can reach out to somebody who's had that exact same problem, right? Either through a Facebook group or an internal intranet, whatever. And, again, as an entrepreneur, it's like, oh, what do I do here? Right. So franchising can give you that advantage to reach out to somebody and, figure things out. Also, financing can be easier. SBA loans. So a lot of franchises have SBA loan approval. So that's the government will guarantee the loan. And, franchises can make it easier to get that financing. And a lot of people like to say, higher rate of success, which is true, but I'll add the caveat. It's a higher rate of success if you get into a good franchise, because there are some dismal franchises out there that have terrible failure rates, that drag that average down. But if you get into a good franchise, their processes are on point and everything else, you're going to have a higher rate of success buying into that.
Well, how do you find, I guess we'll just say a good franchise? I mean, how do you find one of those?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. It's a great question. Over the years, we've put together a process that helps people do that. So The first thing that we need to look at is what is their unique situation. So we have something called a psychometric assessment. It helps us to nail down, are they good at sales? What type of culture would they thrive in? Would they be good in an emerging franchise or maybe a more established franchise brand? Some people are more entrepreneurial. Some people, want a bigger voice. Wouldn't be that great in a McDonald's situation where McDonald's just says, do this, do this, do this. Some people just don't like that environment. So we want to take a look at them as an individual. What are their skills, their goals, their exit strategy, a number of other things. And we also want to take a look at their market demand and local demographics, right? Every single person has a very unique number of variables, and aligning those, that's what's going to give you the biggest opportunity for success. And I think, and this is the question we get asked so often, what's the best franchise? What's the most profitable franchise? There's no such thing. The most profitable one is going to be the one that the individual enjoys operating. They're capable of operating it. And, it's a good long-term choice. And I think, proof of that, if you go to our About Us page on Franchise City, every single one of us has, decades in the world of franchising. If there was a best franchise out there, we would know it. But every single one of us has owned or either still owns a different franchise. There's not one single one of us I think we've got 18 now, who has owned the same franchise. So you've really got to look at those variables. That's the key to finding the quote unquote best option for you.
Well, that's one of the things I noticed on your website. It's franchise.city. Is that right?
Yeah, franchise.city.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed that you do have a team, and it seems like the people that you work with or that you employ, that you partner with, they all have experience. And did I notice that you also had some a legal person on there, or people who have some kind of experience in that area?
Yeah, we've got a couple of people who have a legal background as well. And, that can have some level of help. Typically, we don't, at this point in the process, delve too deeply into the legal ramifications. We do an FDD overview, as generally does the franchise as well, just to go through a general overview. But we're not going to be the ones to rely on to really drill down into legalese. And we suggest, folks retain a franchise lawyer, independent franchise lawyer, just to look over things to make sure they make sense for them.
Yeah, I was just surprised that it really seemed like you had a group that really could handle quite a few things that could come up. But let me just get back to what makes a good franchise. And I know what you were saying. It's really, you do so much to determine that, or to help somebody find out what makes them happy. But for you, what do you find when it comes to a person who comes to you and they say, I'm thinking about a franchise? You give them, I guess you said it's a test that you give them?
Yeah, psychometric assessment.
So what you're doing is you're looking to see how they fit and where they fit at, and then you steer them to a particular area. Is that it?
Yeah, based on, there's two main tools that we use. One is the psychometric assessment. The other is a confidential questionnaire. And that just digs into their preferences, what they're good at. Do they like administration? Do they like sales? Are they good at sales? What is their background, their history, and all these other details? Once we have all of that data, what we do is we go into our database and we go through and we begin to align which franchises using that data would make the most sense. So yeah, typically those two tools, as well as, obviously, paperwork is great and looking at all these data points is great, but having a conversation with someone often brings up things that weren't even mentioned. So, we've had people that they may have an affinity for pets. Right. I love pets, and okay. So we can go down that path. So yeah, just looking at all these different unique variables of the individual, that helps us to find which is going to make the most sense.
One of the things that I want to touch on, and it's probably, or you may even think, at least when I speak to entrepreneurs, one of the things that I always want to find out is how they handle stress or risk, because that seems to be a part of just being an entrepreneur. Do you ever delve into any of that when you're talking to someone?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the things that is a key, and particularly with individuals who've not gone through this process before. They don't understand that fear is going to manifest. It's going to happen. When you're about to plop down whatever it is, $200,000, $400,000, you're going to start second guessing these things. So that's actually part of our process. And one of our brokers on the team here, Trish Benedict, she's the author of a great book, Franchising Without Fear. Fantastic book available on Amazon. And it's all about, how to overcome this fear. But yeah, as part of our process, we just try and let people be aware that these things are going to come up, and a few options and solutions of how to deal with it. And it's interesting how the mind can start to play tricks,
Oh yeah, yeah.
once you get to that point. And if they're valid concerns, we definitely want to deal with those. But oftentimes they're just the fear manifesting itself in something that keeps people away from attaining those dreams and goals that they originally wanted to do.
Well, I see that too. And one of the nice things I like about franchises, and one of the reasons I really was excited to speak with you today, is that a person who maybe they decide they're going to leave their job, 40 years old, 50, whatever, and they want to get into something that would have less risk. And maybe, of course, if it's less risk, there's less fear involved, probably. But I think that would be a great reason to get into franchise, because you could really just get into even what I would say a turnkey operation.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is also the option for buying a resale business. If they have the budget, we also work in resale franchises. So this is an already operating business. It has cash flow, has employees in place, and, you're going to bring your risk profile down to an even greater extent. Now, because the economy is, for some reason or another, booming right now, a lot of businesses, they're asking a premium. So, it's really a judgment call. Now, if someone has the capacity to get in there, they and start things off themselves, put in some sweat equity, they can generate a lot more money out of the gate, to be frank, right? So again, it comes down to the individual. What's their risk tolerance and their budget? And would they prefer to put in, a lot of work and, potentially build that business up to that same extent within a year while putting out a lot less money? Or do they want to buy a resale? So yeah, there's definitely franchises that have higher upside, and it's a universal law, right? It's either higher upside, more risk, or the reverse. So it comes down to the individual, right?
One of the things when I thought about franchising, and I have never been a franchisee. Years ago, I thought about it, and I decided to launch my own publishing company.
Yeah.
But I thought about doing it. But one of the things that when I was thinking about doing it, I didn't research it enough. But I thought, boy, this is going to be an expensive. If I'm going to get into a business that's already running or even maybe thriving, it's going to be expensive. What can you give me kind of a range? And it may be very difficult because I know there are millions of kinds of businesses. Can you give me a range?
Yeah. Sure. And, it comes down to, a person's operational preference. So if somebody, for example, let's say they were a sales exec for a number of years, they want to continue to leverage that experience. They don't want to spend a whole lot of money. There are sort of one-person operations where there's not a lot of infrastructure, and some people love that. They don't want employees. They don't want anything else. So you can get into something like a consulting franchise, anywhere around $50,000 to $70,000 range at the low end. Sales training companies, many of those are franchises. Again, sub $100,000 investment kind of thing. As you gradually go up, you get into, say, senior care, for example, bit more infrastructure. You're dealing with employees, things of that nature. Looking at anywhere from about 120 to 150. And I should probably clarify, when I give these numbers, this is the total all-in investment. So that's including the franchise fee. It's including their working capital, usually for about 3 months. It's absolutely everything you would be expected to need over the first 3 months of your business. Once you go beyond the service type of businesses, so you're cleaning, you're painting, your senior care, you start getting into the $200,000, $250,000 range for retail, small footprint restaurant type of business, small manufacturing type of business, and then your big box sit down restaurants. Those go well into the millions. So generally, depending on the budget, a lot of people gravitate towards, once they know these options. A lot of people underestimate what a McDonald's costs, right, which is well into the millions, but they see the franchise fee is it's under 50,000, so that's all that's needed, but not the case. Service-based franchises can really generate significant income, often rivaling the restaurants. much lower overhead. You're operating out of a small office, and again, anywhere between the $70,000 to $120,000, $130,000 range.
What's interesting is I looked at your YouTube channel. I watched a number of your videos. I subscribed to it.
Yeah, appreciate it. You too.
Hey, I appreciate what you're doing. Believe me, I learned quite a bit from watching your channel about franchises. But when I went to your channel, Franchise City, on YouTube, I looked at some of the restaurants that you gave some good details on what it's like to get into a restaurant. And some of the restaurants, I think, when people are thinking about retiring, or maybe they've got a lump sum of money came in from somewhere, they think about buying into a restaurant franchise. But you really get into some good detail, and you tell people what they should be looking for. And then, of course, you let them know some of these they're just so darn expensive.
Yeah, very true. And, I think the biggest problem with food type franchises, and particularly coffee or smoothie shops, is this emotional momentum that starts to manifest, and visualizing, like, it's such a romantic notion, walking into my coffee shop and people sipping coffee, the cash register ringing away, right?
Yeah.
But there's challenges that people need to be aware of that are not only industry specific but franchise specific. Some franchises have really been struggling, and some have done better. So yeah, we definitely like to educate people, and I think that's been our major differentiator. That franchising, for the most part, has always been very hype oriented, right? Everything is great, everything is rosy, but yeah, it's not really the case. So yeah, we like to let people know how it is. There's hundreds of franchises out there, so there's no reason to buy one that's not at the top of its game. So yeah, very, very true. With the restaurants, they're expensive, and not that there's not some great restaurants, because there are, but they can be expensive, and they can, somebody walks in with wife or whomever, and they eat a submarine. That's their basis for buying a franchise. Wow, that was a great sandwich, right? It's 400,000. That's not the way to buy it.
Well, listen, Rob, I really appreciate your taking the time to meet with us today. You've definitely given us some great information that I think can help a lot of people. If somebody wants to contact you, I'm going to put a link to your website, but is there any other way that you would like them to contact you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Franchise.city, that's the best way. Contact page, or toll free 1-800-432-1583. We can throw that in the video. But yeah, usually the form on the website, that's the quickest way to get a hold of a broker.
Good. Well, I appreciate that, Robin. And once again, I want to thank you for being here on Over 50 TV.
Yeah, thanks for having us.